So as thousands of anti-government protesters have feared dead in Iran, the U.S. is sending military assets, including an aircraft carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln, to the Middle East as President Trump weighs whether or not to carry out a strike. Aishah Hasnie joins us from the White House with more. Aishah.
Hey, good morning to you, Brian. Well, you can certainly see here that all the chess pieces are moving around the globe, and we are learning from military sources that the U.S. is sending at least one aircraft carrier to that region right now. We don't know yet if it's going to be the USS Abraham Lincoln that's currently in the South China Sea, or if it's one of the two carriers that just left Norfolk or San Diego earlier this week. Meanwhile, Axios is reporting that the director of Israel's spy agency, Mossad, flew in today to the U.S. for talks with White House envoy Steve Witkoff about Iran, with Senator Lindsey Graham announcing that he is headed to Israel as he calls on the president to take action.
People are being slaughtered in the streets. If that's not a distraction, that's a moment where we need to act. The idea we're dealing with the most vicious regime on the planet, if you don't understand this is the biggest moment for change since the fall of the Berlin Wall, you're missing a lot. This is a religious war.
So the Wall Street Journal is reporting that the president was told an attack on Iran would not guarantee the collapse of the regime. However, yesterday, the Treasury Department announced sanctions on 5 Iranian officials. The president today has a roundtable this morning on rural health. It is open to the press. We'll see if he takes any questions on any further actions in Iran.
All right. Thanks so much, Aishah. Meanwhile, let's bring in retired 4-star General Jack Keane. General, what are our options in Iran?
Well, we have a lot, and I think a lot has already taken place. I mean, clearly the president has made a statement, his credibility is on the line, and listen, when he gives his word, he executes. And that is simply to hold the people that are accountable for what they have done to their own citizens in killing them. That is his promise to the people that have been on the street out there willing to risk their lives, and in thousands of cases, that is exactly the tragedy that has taken place here. So what is likely taking place and what could take place? Well, first of all, we're trying to squeeze Iran in terms of its ability to sell more oil that it's been selling. That has taken place. That's not decisive in itself, but it's an enabler. We're likely helping the protesters communicate better, given the Iranians have shut down the internet. And that's a covert operation to do something like that. Cyber operations likely being conducted against Iranians' command and control systems, their telecommunications, their ability for the IRGC and the Bashi militia who are on the streets to communicate effectively. Also, cyber operations against their surveillance capability of the population itself. All of those are capabilities the United States has that are second to nobody's. Our offensive cyber capability is really something very special. And then we get to information operations. We are likely conducting information operations against the oppressors, the middle-level leaders of the oppressors, the people also carrying the guns. Because if and when, and I believe it's when, kinetic operations are conducted against that organization, against its leaders, we want divisiveness in it. We want that organization to break apart. We want some of them to go over to the side of the protesters, because the reality is the regime is more in trouble as a result of kinetic operations. And then the administration into kinetic operations itself, obviously leaders, obviously the organization is doing the suppressing. But you have to consider what else? Iran's ability to retaliate. Who would they retaliate against? U.S. bases and Israel. So, one, let's make certain that the defense of those systems are as good as they can be, and that has to be taken into consideration. And then what do we do about the target set in reducing Iran's capability to conduct those retaliation attacks? These are all things that are laid out to the president and making decisions and options. And obviously that means we would have to expand the target set to make certain we take down some of Iran's ballistic missiles, I assume. I don't know. I don't ask those kind of questions. But just looking at the portfolio and what needs to be done, you always have to consider what is the retaliation that Iran is going to do here. And let's get something straight. The objective of this attack has never been they're going to go to collapse this regime and we're going to get a regime change. I mean, that article, I totally disagree with it. The president has known that from the outset. At best, what would come of this is we put the Iran regime on a pathway to its collapse. That's at best. We don't have an organization to take it over. If there was an organization out there ready to take over the regime, what would Iran do with that? They would be killing them, and they would be putting them in jail and hanging them. So this is a process that's taken place. We're focused on holding the people accountable for what they have done and then putting it on a pathway to so weaken the regime, which is already politically, economically, and military the weakest it has been in 45 years. Our actions here will further weaken it.
18,400 plus arrested, 2,600 have been killed. It looks like that Bassi group, dressed in plain clothes, along with the Revolutionary Guard, goes into the middle of the crowds and just executes people at close range, piling up the bodies in order to disperse and kill off this unrest, kill off the unrest in the streets that was driven originally by economic means. Lastly, in your entire career since 1979, is this the best chance to get a new regime in there? Even if we're not implementing it, do you believe the momentum is like you have not seen before? Better than 2009, better than 2022?
Oh, yeah, it is absolutely better than 2009 when we did nothing. Certainly better than what took place in 2019, largely economic issues. 2022, dealing with Aishah Hasnie when she was killed. Yes, but of course the regime has reacted considerably more violently than they have done in the past as well. This is a huge opportunity because going in, as I said, the regime has never been this weak.
Right.
And that's fundamentally what's taken place. And the people on the streets understand that. That's why they keep coming out. What the regime is doing right now, they're in all the neighborhood with guns pointing at the houses. Every street has guns out there and not wanting them to get out of the house. If they come out of the house, they're going to shoot them. And that is what has taken place in terms of suppressing the people's ability to get back out on the street.
Right.
President Trump said he's going to hold them accountable. I take him at his word.
General Jack Keane, thanks so much. Appreciate your analysis now more than ever. Thank you. Meanwhile, more Fox and Friends in just a moment.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.